Jai Hind friends, every year we celebrate Jammu and Kashmir's accession to India. But this accession of Kashmir to India was in many ways an extension of violence and brutalities and its many horrors. Over the years, when Kashmir witnessed bloodbaths, brutal rape, torture and conversion of Hindus in Bengal faced the same atrocities and massacres. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk not just about the Kashmiri Hindus, but also about Hindus of Bangladesh. On 26th of October 1947, the Maharaja Hari Singh of Jammu and Kashmir signed the Instrument of Accession, the legal document that ceded J&K to the Dominion of India as per the Indian Independence Act 1947. During the period inching towards independence from British colonial rule, India was headed towards a split as per the two-nation theory expounded by the Muslim League. The then ruler of J&K, Hari Singh, was a Hindu, but the majority in his state were Muslims. He had hoped to remain independent since he would lose his monarchical powers if he chose to join a democratic India. Law and order became a tremendous problem when Pashtun tribesmen from Pakistan's northwest frontier province, supported by the Pakistani army, invaded Kashmir in 1947 in order to take it by force. They were headed towards Srinagar to depose the king. Hari Singh requested armed intervention from India in order to calm the situation and suppress the invasion. On the same day, he fled Srinagar and arrived at Jammu, where he was met by VP Menon, Jawaharlal Nehru's representative. However, he was told that India could not send troops unless it was Indian territory. There, the Instrument of Accession was signed by Hari Singh and J&K acceded to India. And herein starts the story of the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits. During 1988-1990, several prominent Hindu leaders were killed. One of the top political leaders of the valley, Tekalal Taplu, in front of several eyewitnesses. The first day of governor's rule, 19th January 1990, saw the darkest night in the history of the Kashmiri Pandit exodus. In the chilly, wintry nights of January 1990, Kashmiri Pandits received notices demanding their departure from the valley within the day. That night, the politically disturbed valley reverberated with war cries, communal calls and threats to Pandits. Raliv, Ghalib, Chaliv. Now this is an open threat which translates to convert, leave or die. That was the choice given to Kashmiri Pandits. In a door-to-door mission, Hindu homes were attacked, families killed and many women raped by terrorists. Kashmiri Pandits who survived the night fled the valley on 20th January morning and the weeks that followed, becoming refugees in their own homeland. This was not the first, but the seventh time in the collective history of Kashmir, spanning some 600 years, that Kashmiri Pandits were being forced to leave Kashmir. What happened in Kashmir also happened in Bengal. Figures reveal a stark decline in the Hindu population of Bangladesh, erstwhile East Pakistan, from 20% in 1971 to a mere 8.9% today, amidst ongoing violence and repression. The rapidly deteriorating situation draws parallels to past global crises, prompting warnings of a potential repeat of the horrors seen in 1971. The Islamization of Bengal began in early 13th century with the attack of Muhammad Bakhtiyar Khilji. In 1201, Khilji attacked a place called Nadia, also known as Navadvip, a holy place of Hindus ruled by Sena kings. He captured some parts of Bengal. There is an important aspect to the spread of Islam in Bengal that needs to be mentioned here. Most Western scholars, historians from colonial times and Marxist schools, as well as contemporary accounts by Islamist chroniclers, have tried to put the onus of the spread of Islam on caste-ridden Hindu society. Their argument has been that lower caste Hindus converted to Islam willingly to get rid of caste discrimination. However, historical evidence shows a different picture, and this seems to be a deliberate and mischievous interpretation to brush under the carpet the bloodbath and cruelties Hindus suffered at the hands of Islamic invaders. When Bengal faced the wave of Islamization, Kashmir witnessed the exodus of Hindus. The first exodus. Sultan Sikandar attempted to establish Sharia. Hindu festivals, rituals and processions and music were banned. Applying tilak was not allowed. Religious tax jizya was levied from Hindus, and Hindus were given a choice between converting, exile or death. This was the same threat that was to be repeated in 1990. At that time, they say over 100,000 Kashmiri Pandits were drowned in the Dal Lake and were burnt at a location in Kashmir which is known as Bhatta Mazar, or the graveyard of Kashmiri Pandits. Hindu women were raped and sold. The second exodus. Under Sultan Ali Shah, many Hindus committed suicide while some managed to escape. The third exodus. Hyder Shah continued with the fanatic ways of previous Islamic rulers. The arms and noses of Pandits were chopped off, while many others preferred to drown themselves in Jhelum river to escape torture. The fourth exodus. Both Jahangir and Shah Jahan were less tolerant towards Hindu practices, but Aurangzeb was the worst of all. Jizya tax was imposed and forced conversions began. He imposed a strict dress code for Kashmiri women. It is during Aurangzeb's reign that tortured Hindus approached Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur, for help, which ultimately led to Aurangzeb beheading the Guru and the creation of Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj to fight the oppressors. The fifth exodus. Muhammad Khan instructed the governor to persecute non-Muslims or Kafirs with 6 commandments, which also included Hindus not being allowed to ride horses, Hindus not being allowed to wear shoes, and Hindu children being barred from education. They realized that the strength of the Hindu was education, the strength of the Kashmiri Pandit was education. And when you deny Kashmiri Pandits education, you take away their biggest weapon, their mind and their ability to think. Under Afghans, Kashmir entered into an even darker phase of violence and poverty. Afghan rule in Kashmir was a period of brutal tyranny. Hindu granths were confiscated and used to construct a band along the tributary of Jhelum, now called Sut. When killing with the sword got monotonous, the Hindus were put in pairs, tied in grass sacks and drowned in the Dal Lake. Later, leather sacks were used instead of grass sacks. Islamists were free to jump on the back of Hindus to take rides. This practice was called khos. Many Pandits were appointed as kardars or agricultural tax collectors. If the crops failed and ample tax was not bought, these kardars were tortured in any way that the governor pleased. When Kashmir witnessed the exodus for 6 times during the Mughal and the Afghan rule, Bengal saw a number of riots during the pre-partition era. Bengal history has been plagued with such incidences where Hindu temples were desecrated or Hindus were subjugated. This continued till the pre-partition era, and even later Hindus in East Bengal, now known as Bangladesh, had to suffer a bloodbath. These developments also betrayed a distinct pattern which had taken shape since the beginning of the 20th century in Bengal. The Maiman Singh riots. These riots began on April 21st when some Swadeshi volunteers tried to stop some Muslim shopkeepers from selling foreign products at a fair in Jamalpur area. The shopkeepers attacked those volunteers who were primarily Hindus. All strata of Hindu society were targeted and Hindu temples were desecrated. The Calcutta riots. In 1918, Calcutta witnessed riots for 3 days from September 9th to September 11th. In April 1926, riots again broke out in Calcutta and the bloodbath lasted till July. The scale of violence was unmatched in the history of Calcutta. The immediate reason for this riot was objection by the Muslims to the Hindus playing music while a Hindu procession crossed a mosque. The Dhaka riots. The Dhaka riots broke out when the Islamists objected to an age-old tradition of playing music in a Janmashtami procession. They wanted this music to be stopped when the procession was passing in front of any mosque in the city. The Chittagong riots. The Chittagong riots broke out in August 1931. They differed from earlier riots as the local administration run by the British actively connived with radical Islamists to target Hindus. The immediate trigger for these riots was the assassination of a Muslim police inspector by a revolutionary as part of India's fight against the British. After the funeral of the inspector, a 50,000 strong crowd backed by the British administration went on a rampage against Hindus. This unholy alliance resulted in 2 of the worst riots in the 1940s, the Dhaka riots of 1941 and the Great Calcutta killings of 1946, paving the way for partition and massive anti-Hindu violence. On 16th of August 1946, the Muslim League called for Direct Action Day. Its leader Muhammad Ali Jinnah proclaimed that we shall either have a divided India or a destroyed India. The violence unleashed on that day set in train a series of events that made the partition of India unavoidable. The Noakhali riots were a series of semi-organized massacres, rapes and abductions combined with looting and arson of Hindu properties perpetrated by radical Islamists in the districts of Noakhali in the Chittagong division of Bengal. These atrocities towards Bengali Hindus continued during the Bangladeshi independence movement. The only difference was that it was orchestrated by the Pakistani army and Jamaat-e-Islami against their own population. On March 25th, 1971, the Pakistan military began a 10-month campaign of genocide against the ethnic Bengali and Hindu religious communities in East Pakistan. This was called Operation Searchlight. This spurred the 10-month Bangladesh Liberation War and later the 13-day Indo-Pakistan War. In the eyes of the Pakistani military, Hindu, Bengali and Indian identities were one and the same. 1.5 million Bengalis were displaced. 10 million Bengalis, the majority of whom were Hindus, had fled to India. After the demolition of the Babri Masjid in 1992, Islamists in Bangladesh retaliated and a number of temples were destroyed, innocent Hindus killed, and Hindu girls and women raped, people who had nothing to do with the Babri Masjid demolition. This very inhuman act has been presented by Taslima Nasreen, a Bangladeshi doctor cum writer, in her novel Lajja. Her work was called An Assault on Islam, and she found herself at the receiving end, receiving death threats from radical Islamists. Since August 2024, Hindus have faced over 205 attacks after the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh. These attacks include lynching, kidnappings, rape, and desecration of Hindu temples. The world is deaf, mute, and blind when it comes to Hindu suffering. That must change. The conscience of the world cannot cherry pick its victims. Hindu lives matter. Jai Hind.